Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on the new 2019 CMS Price Transparency Rule that goes into effect in 12 days. My name is Joe Moretti, a member of the sales and marketing team here at AmeriCollect, and I get to be your administrator for today's webinar. If you have any questions for us at some point throughout the webinar, please type it in the question box or email us, and we will be sure to get back to you immediately after the webinar. Now, to introduce you to the main attraction, Nick McLaughlin. Nick joined AmeriCollect sales and marketing efforts in 2011, helping build our reputation as the ridiculously nice collection agency. He is the incoming president of the Indiana HFMA chapter and has an uncommon fire for patients receiving excellent treatment when talking about their bills with customer service or collections representatives. So without further ado, Nick, what adventures do you have in store for us with the new CMS rule?
Hey, thank you so much, Joe, for the awesome introduction. And thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. It's always a lot of fun to see who registers, because many of you are clients and many of you are healthcare providers that don't partner with us, well, yet anyhow. And a couple of you are even competitors listening in to learn a little more about an important industry hot topic. And as the picture on your screen alludes to, we see the world of healthcare finance compliance like a bit of a tough mudder competition. And the more we work together, the better our industry will be as a whole. So come one, come all, and welcome to the Tough Mudder CMS Price Transparency Obstacle. Your presenter, yes, that's me. I am Nick McLaughlin. Friends call me Nick. You're welcome to do the same. As Joe mentioned, been a part of the sales team since 2011 at AmeriCollect, and mentioned some involvement in HFMA. All that to say, I love the healthcare finance industry, especially as it relates to helping patients navigate their own side of the obstacle course, which leads me to the obligatory 20-second AmeriCollect commercial. How ridiculous indeed. So at AmeriCollect, we believe that everyone deserves to be treated ridiculously nice all the time, no matter what. We also believe that hospitals and physicians deserve to be paid for the awesome work that you do. Hey, I think we might be in the right business. So pairing this ridiculously nice approach with our 100% dedication to the healthcare industry really allows us to collaborate with patients, help them understand what they owe, and work with them to get our clients' accounts paid as quickly as possible. If you're not already a client and sometime in the future find yourself looking for a new early out or bad debt partner, please shoot us a call or email. We would love to get a proposal together for you. Now to the fun stuff. Our agenda for today. This afternoon, I'll be covering the rule and what to do, what happens if your hospital does not comply, and the pivot, which is an incredibly helpful conversation tool that you and your teams can use to better address patient questions that will likely come up as a result of this rule. Welcome to the tough mudder of price transparency. Let me start by saying how incredibly impressed I am by all of you. The amount of craziness that you have to put up with every day just to keep your doors open is baffling. It seems like there's always something new being thrown at you, and if you don't jump through the new hoop or do the new dance or successfully maneuver the new obstacle, you won't get paid for the awesome work that you do at the hospital. And like I mentioned a minute ago, we have a problem with that. So let's take a look at the latest mud pit to crawl through and how to get to the other side. So the thing about this rule is that it's really not all that new. It's just an update of a rule that came down in 2015, which required hospitals to have standard charges publicly available. The newness is this. CMS decided that a few challenges they were hoping would be addressed by the 2015 rule have not improved as much as they would have liked. So it's time for an update that will hopefully more effectively address those challenges. And in the rule, CMS explicitly named these challenges that they're trying to address. Number one is patients being surprised by out-of-network bills for physicians, such as anesthesiologists and radiologists who provide services at in-network hospitals. Number two is patients being surprised by facility fees and physician fees for emergency department visits. And so CMS's goal of the new rule is to improve the accessibility and usability of the charge information that hospitals are already required to disclose. And here is the new rule. Hospitals are required to make available a list of standard charges via the internet in a machine-readable format and to update this information at least annually or more often as appropriate. So let's break down a few of the key terms of this rule. Key term number 1 is current standard charges. So a little multiple choice question for you. Do you think that this refers to A, only charges for the top 20 most common procedures, B, only charges for each DRG billed by the hospital, or C, all items and all services provided by the hospital? Yes, maybe making C in all caps was a bit of a giveaway, but the answer is C, all items and all services provided by the hospital. When asked for further clarification, CMS said that all items and services provided by the hospital includes all DRGs, your entire charge master, even including things like drugs, biologicals, and other services, literally everything that you bill for. Exciting. All right, on to the next term. Via the internet. CMS does not explicitly say in the rule that the information needs to be made available on your website, but that would certainly be my recommendation. I found an example of one hospital that is close to compliance with the new rule and one that I would say is fully compliant, so I'd like to run through those with you real quick. The first is Geisinger in Pennsylvania, and as you can see here, they have a website with their entire charge master with descriptions of the charges and the prices, and this web page, this form with what looks to be size 3.5 font is 814 pages long, all in one place. They have the description of the service and the standard price for the service, but no coding data to standardize the pricing. Also note that the format is in a PDF, and we'll get to why that's important later. The other example is Sharp Healthcare in San Diego. They have an entire website dedicated to the charge master, and it's actually got a really helpful little description of what the charge master is and what it's not and how it can be helpful to patients. There was on the last page an option to choose which hospital within Sharp Healthcare you wanted. I picked Chula Vista because I thought that sounded like a fun name. But from there you can see each of the categories of services, and I selected room and board, and then from the categories page you can select which individual unit or section of services or of charges. And so I selected the intermediate care, NICU, and maternal infant services. And when you click on those, it pulls up a spreadsheet that looks like this. You have the charge code and the charge description and the charge all in one place. This is for intermediate care. This one is for maternal and infant services, and this one is for the NICU. And these are just room and board charges. They're not all in one place, but they are all available on the internet in a machine-readable format. It would take a little bit of work to farm all of this into some sort of data aggregator if you were trying to compare prices. But I think it's pretty cool that it's all available right there. On to our next term, machine-readable format. So when CMS says they want the data in a machine-readable format, this is what they mean. .csv, .xml, spreadsheet, etc. So something like that. I'm going to say a spreadsheet is a lot easier for a person to read than a comma or fixed width limited CSV file, but machine readable is the standard, and CMS made sure to note that PDF does not qualify because it is very difficult to get a computer program to read PDF into some helpful form of data. So what CMS is trying to accomplish with all of this is for patients to be able to pull prices from neighboring hospitals to see where they could get care for a lower cost. And as I was reading through the public comments and CMS responses for the rule, I found a few that were particularly interesting, so I thought I'd share that here. Normally not a slide reader, but I figured having this in the handouts to use as a reference could be helpful to you. So here it is. One comment that came in was, the information in the charge master would not be useful to patients and would only increase confusion as it would not inform them of their out-of-pocket costs for a particular service. Problems are that the charge master typically contains terms that are difficult for patients to understand, does not depict negotiated discounts with insurers, and lacks contextual information that the patients would need. And CMS responded by saying, we disagree with commenters that the information contained in the charge master would not be useful to patients. We acknowledge that providing patients with more specific information on their potential financial liability is needed and commend the hospitals that already do so. The next comment that I found interesting was regarding the definition of standard charges. Commenters said that the definition of standard charges is unclear, as hospitals have many negotiated rates for the same service. Terms such as charges, payments, cost, and prices have different meanings, but are often used interchangeably in the healthcare finance landscape. To which CMS responded, the new guidelines on this topic are no different than the prior guidelines. They just require that the information be made available via the internet in a machine-readable format and to be updated at least annually. Basically saying that may be an issue, but we're not dealing with that here. One last thing to note, while reading through the comments, CMS made a point to communicate multiple times that nothing in the rule precludes hospitals from incorporating quality information with the charge data, suggesting that's one way hospitals could justify differences to patients. But I don't want to. What happens if a hospital just doesn't want to go along with the rule? Here's the long answer from the second FAQ that CMS released on the topic. The key section being the last piece saying specific additional future enforcement or other actions that we may take with the guidelines will be addressed in future rulemaking. So although they don't have specific consequences decided upon yet, it's really not hard to imagine suspension of Medicare eligibility until resolved, local news agencies calling out hospitals for not sharing their prices, and members of the community calling to ask why the hospital isn't complying with price transparency measures. Long story short, non-compliance has the potential to hurt in a lot of different areas. So now that we all understand the rule a little better and are going to comply, I'm pretty sure we're going to run into some patient questions that our teams haven't had to deal with all that much up to this point. So now let's talk about what some of those questions could be and how to answer them. Just a second while I take a quick drink. All right, the pivot, answering patient questions or anticipating patient questions and how to answer them. So just a few weeks ago, we all celebrated Thanksgiving. Yes, it looks like they're eating sushi in this picture or something. And in my opinion, that's absolutely no Thanksgiving feast, but the stage is set. Uncle Rick and Uncle Jerry start having a friendly conversation about politics, and then a less friendly conversation about whether or not Hillary Clinton should be in jail, and then a really nasty conversation about whether or not Donald Trump should be in jail. And next thing you know, it looks like it's about to go down. Enter one of my favorite conflict diffusing communication tools, the pivot. It's time to change the subject big time. So here at AmeriCollect, we have a ton of experience with often uncomfortable conversations. We're a collection agency and early out company. Of course we do. And how to steer patients in a better direction. So how to pivot away from what is causing blood pressure to rise and pivot toward a conversation that will actually be productive for all parties involved. We'd like to share some of that with you now. So when it comes to talking about charges with patients, step one is to focus away from the charge and on to the patient's specific situation, what they should actually expect to pay out of pocket. Step two is to pivot to the availability of financial assistance. And the last piece I'll touch on is how to prepare your staff to address charge differences patients bring up between you and your neighboring hospitals. So focusing on the patient's situation, if a patient says, I need to have my knee replaced, and apparently, according to your website, it's going to cost me $1 bajillion. Here's what your hospital representative can say. Well, Jane, let's take a look at your specific situation to see what it would actually cost you out of pocket. The prices posted online don't take into account anything like insurance, deductibles, copays, insurance discounts, or even financial assistance options. Question number one would be, do you have health insurance? You may run into a few people that want to have the broader healthcare debate about the state of healthcare finance in America, but 99% of people you talk to care significantly more about what the service they need is actually going to cost them. Pivoting away from standard charge as quickly as possible and towards what they're actually going to be responsible for is huge. And for those that do want to have the healthcare finance debate, I encourage them to reach out to their congressman or senator. If the patient does have health insurance, collect the insurance information and offer to run a patient responsibility estimate for the patient. Can you give me the subscriber name, member ID, and group number? Let me run this information by your insurance company and get right back to you with an estimate of what you'll actually have to pay out of pocket. So after getting that estimate, call back the patient. Hi, Jane, we spoke with your insurance about your upcoming knee replacement costs, and an estimate of your out-of-pocket costs is $1,500. If the patient still has sticker shock over the amount that they have to pay, move to how to pivot number 2, offer financial assistance. But if the patient does not have health insurance, connect them with a navigator that could help them with Medicaid, or then move to how to pivot number 2, offer financial assistance application. So number 2, patient says, but that's still way more than I could afford to pay. Hospital representative says, well, Jane, how about we take a look at financial assistance to see if you qualify for free or discounted service? Patient says, all right, that would be helpful. The majority of financial assistance policies I've reviewed would qualify a very large percentage of a normal patient population. My local hospital here in Kalamazoo offers a 70% discount to patients earning up to 350% of the federal poverty level. And for a family of 4, that includes anyone earning less than $87,850, which is a pretty awesome community benefit if you ask me. But let's just say they don't qualify for financial assistance, but are still putting up a stink about the size of the bill. Here's what I would coach my team to say. Hey, Jane, looks like your out-of-pocket cost here is going to be near the $1,500 we talked about earlier. If you think it would be best, you're welcome to ask other hospitals what it would cost at their facilities and make the best decision for you. It's okay to shop. And if your hospital is taking the price transparency bull by the horns, it's an opportunity for patients to learn how great your team is to work with and how much of a challenge it is to work with a hospital that may not be nearly so up to snuff. So what if a patient comes in angry after already doing some research into the prices between you and the neighboring hospital? Patient comes in and says, I was looking at prices online for the knee replacement I need. Why is it going to cost me $2 bajillion at your hospital when it only costs $1 bajillion at the hospital on the other side of town? My best advice would be to pivot the conversation right back to their specific out-of-pocket expense and possibly bring up quality data if possible. So it'd go a little something like this. Well, Jane, the numbers you found online are really just gross charge numbers that don't take into account anything like insurance, deductibles, copays, insurance discounts, or financial assistance options. How about we put together an estimate of what the procedure you're asking about would actually cost you? And you can compare that to what it would cost at the other hospital. Patient, sounds great, thank you. And then go into the conversation before. Do you have insurance? Figure out what it actually would cost them. After you get the estimates from the hospital you're considering, I encourage you to take a look at the hospital compare quality information found on Medicare's website. Here's a great opportunity to mention patient safety, care quality initiatives at the hospital. We've been investing a lot in making sure our patients receive the highest quality of care this is a great opportunity to mention some of the potential differences in quality between yourself and any neighboring hospitals. So there you have it, 3 simple ways to apply the pivot to move away from topics that aren't helpful to a conversation with a patient that actually helps them understand what they should expect from a patient responsibility standpoint. Having these conversations well is so important to ensuring an awesome patient experience with your hospital. The truth of the matter is this: we need each other to get through the tough Mudder obstacle course of compliance and offering awesome customer service to patients. One thing we can offer to you from AmeriCollect to you is our expertise in the area of walking patients through uncomfortable conversations in a way that benefits them as well as the hospital. If you think your patient access, customer service, and or PFS teams would benefit from some private online training in this area to talk through and role play some of the likely conversations they'll run into, or even some of the conversations that they run into on a day-to-day basis already with patients, I would be happy to offer that to you free of charge. My contact info is right there, so feel free to reach out and let me know what would work for your team, and we'll schedule a time to talk through some customer service training. Last but not least, thank you so much for joining us today. I will respond to any questions that were posted in the webinar this afternoon, and feel free to call or email me with any others that may come up. Happy holidays to you all. Here are the resources where you can find all the information I just presented, and have an awesome, ridiculously nice afternoon. Thank you so much.